Coming up here on the Raiders Report, Antonio Pierce will be fired after this season if he continues to do these things this season. I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, and I'm not afraid to tell y'all, I wanted Antonio Pierce to be the head coach, but I'm also man enough to tell you that AP has not done a good job. I'm also man enough to tell you that I hope that we can turn this season around, but I also hope that we're able to get a quarterback, and I hope that the Raiders can get on the right path. But the reason why I want people to subscribe to this show is this. I want a head coach when he steps up to the podium and instead of blaming players, says, you know what, it is on me, on the coaches. I deserve a little bit more blame. And the reason why I wanted to make this show is because I was very ashamed that Antonio Pierce deflected and put a lot of blame on those players. But guess what? I know Raider Nation deserves better. I know Raider Nation shows up every day. And I can't sit up here and promise you that this Raiders team is going to start winning games. What I can promise you is this. When I'm wrong, I'll tell you when I was wrong. And right now it looks like I was very wrong to say that I want AP to be a head coach because he's clearly in over his head. But I also am going to show up here every single day. I'm going to give you my heart. I'm going to give you everything that I got because that's what the nation does and that's what y'all deserve. If you feel that, hit that subscribe button. So here's why Antonio Pierce, I think, is going to be fired at the end of the season. The number one reason, poor game management. And I didn't even know that you were going to put the headphones up there. Maybe I should just do this whole segment like this right now. But Antonio Pierce and the poor game management, we've all seen it. Everybody has seen it, and it's not something that has just happened over the course of just a week or two. I mean, we talk about multiple times, and I'm actually going to challenge the nation here down in the comments. Tell me one time this season where you go, I can't believe Antonio Pierce did that. Because I'm talking about from week one, putting on the 43-yard line against the Los Angeles Chargers, to not trying to score the half right in that Chiefs game, calling a timeout at the 2-minute warning, lining up there, Munford out wide. I mean, the amount of times, and if I really sat down and I went through every single game and I wrote down how many times I go, I can't believe Antonio Pierce just did that, I bet I'd come up with 20 to 30 things through 8 weeks. Hell, it might even be more than that. But to me, Antonio Pierce coach is so scared, and he also doesn't call plays on offense. He doesn't call plays on defense. I wanted the Antonio Pierce that I saw at the podium, the guy that inspired confidence in his players and his coaching staff and his fan base. Right now, I got an Antonio Pierce coach that is afraid to step on the field and coaches like the Cowardly Dog cartoon. That's not the Raider way. Antonio Pierce has got he's got his tail between his legs, and sooner or later, we just got to be able to say this. He's not a good head coach, and he's not a good head coach right now. I also know that I'm not the only one that sees this. I think one of the best film guys in the biz is Ted Wynn, and the Raiders' play calling and game management might be the worst in the NFL. If guys all over the internet see it, if fans can see it, how can the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders not see that Luke Getsy is a horrific play caller? I actually don't understand how it's possible, and it's getting to a point where it's as frustrating as when Mark Davis said last season, like, I like the way our coach staff is doing. Like, when he said that he felt like Josh McDaniels was doing the right things. When I heard Mark Davis say that last year, I go, Mark, I don't even understand how the hell you can say that. When I hear Antonio Pierce saying that he doesn't feel like it's the coaching issue and that it feels like it's coming down to execution, I'm going, I don't even understand how that's humanly possible. And then the lack of blitz plan against Spags, it's just there's so many things that Antonio Pierce does on a weekly basis that is inexcusable, and how unprepared this team is week after week, and how badly coached this team is, and how they crumble in the biggest situations. That falls on Antonio Pierce's shoulders. So here's a God-honest question, and I want you to answer this with your head, not your heart. This head, please. Scale it from 1 to 100. What is your confidence level in Antonio Pierce right now? This is the pinned comment here on today's show. You're about to get hit with the YouTube ad break. I want you to scroll on down and give me your God-honest answer, your confidence level in Antonio Pierce right now. My confidence level, this is supposed to be a 30, is a 30 out of 100, a 3 out of 10. And I say that because it was a 10 out of 10 when the season started. And every week I feel like it has gone down lower and lower and lower, and soon it's going to be at the floor. But the reason why I'm upset is because it does drop every week. And you want to be able to sit up here and go, my confidence level in my first-year head coach is going up. And if I'm Mark Davis, I'm going to evaluate that, where at the end of the year, you want to see a coach learn from his mistakes. You want to see a coach get better and better and better. AP hasn't learned from his mistakes. If anything, AP is starting to deflect even more on his mistakes, and he's not getting better and better. The team's not getting better and better. So the fact that my confidence level is growing less and less, I'd imagine there's some players that feel the exact same way, which just brings me to my next point right here. I know for a fact the locker room is losing faith. I'm not going to tell you players. I'm not going to tell you coaching staff. I'm not going to tell you anything besides the fact of this. If you called me a liar when I told you Raiders players are losing faith and want Josh McDaniels fired, then you're probably not going to believe me here. But I'm telling you right now, there are players, there are coaches on the Raiders that are starting to lose faith in Antonio Pierce. I'm not saying that anybody has told me that they want AP fired, because nobody has told me that. But I'm looking at all y'all dead in the eyes right now, and I'm telling you that Antonio Pierce's confidence level on the Las Vegas Raiders is drastically dropping. I'm also going to tell you that what AP said after that game against the Chiefs, it's not going over well right now in that locker room. Quite frankly, I think Antonio Pierce needs to have a players-coaches meeting to be able to smooth a few things out, because it's a little bit bumpy right now. I also know that Davante Adams quit on this team. Does Davante deserve a lot of blame in that? Abso-flippin-lutely. The guy's a diva. The guy wanted to put himself ahead of the shield. But I also think Antonio Pierce needs to do a better job of being able to sit back and going, well, we also failed Davante, and we are failing right now a lot of the players on this team because we're doing boneheaded things over and over and over again. And I know Max Crosby wants to win. I know there's a lot of players in that team that want to win. Every player that I've talked to wants this Raiders team to win. We want this Raiders team to win. And if this team is actually trying to win games, that's a major issue to me, because they are really bad, unmotivated, poorly disciplined, and they don't inspire anything that would give me any type of confidence that we are moving in the right direction. And there's guys in that locker room and coaching staff that know that that's to be true. I got more reasons here of why Antonio Pierce could be fired if he continues to do the things that he's doing here. But before we get into that, I got to show some love to our sponsor here, Prize Picks, because quite frankly, they are giving me something to root for when I watch Raiders games. I'm torn. I'm like, do I want the Raiders to win, or do I want the Raiders to have a better draft pick? I am so torn on that, it's not even funny. But you know what I'm not torn on? Putting extra money in my pocket. And all you got to do with Prize Picks is choose more or less. It's truly that simple. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big-time payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Prize Picks also is the best way to get action in sports in over 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. When you look at the lineup on screen right now, for those that do not know, we go live for every Thursday night football game. I'm going to be live here on Thursday night. Chuggs is actually going to be doing his own watch party on our Texans show, which I give him a lot of credit for being able to do and continue to grow his own brand. And here's the Chuggs' Texans lineup. I'm going to be here in a crazy outfit on Thursday, and I hope that you guys all tune into that. But really, he's going the more, and I kind of like the Tank Dell one. I also would go that, which is kind of sad because Stephon Diggs just tore his ACL. But the bottom line is this. If you're a Raiders fan and you're like, I just need something to root for, I feel you. Believe me when I tell you that. And Prize Picks is going to give you something to root for on Sundays, because waking up on Sundays and just feeling lost, unmotivated, I'm sick and tired of doing it, and I'm not going to do it anymore. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Make sure that you use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Antonio Pierce will be fired at the end of the season if he continues to show that the Raiders don't have an identity. I said that I hated the Josh McDaniels hiring because I'm always somebody that sits up here and goes, the team's going to take on the identity of the head coach. Your kids are probably going to take on the identity a little bit of, their mom and their dad, maybe their grandparents, whoever their role models are in their life. They always say like, oh, the dog takes on the identity of its parents. It's just, it's simple concepts of teams take on the identities of their leaders. And the Raiders are a soft football team. They are bad with fundamentals on both sides of the football. So I don't want to hear offense, defense. They are bad on both sides of the football fundamentally. The Raiders, they crumble in big-time situations. You know why? Because every time there's a big-time situation as well, I think Antonio Pierce has crumbled this year. Think about how the boneheaded false starts, the boneheaded penalties, just the boneheaded plays where you're like, this is the biggest opportunity in this game, and we're going to line up there Munford out wide, and Gardner Minshew can't find anybody open, so he's got to scramble, and he fumbles. This team lacks confidence. This team lacks swagger. And when the Raiders hired Antonio Pierce, I go, this team's going to have confidence. This team's going to have swagger. This team's going to be well-disciplined. This team's going to be able to go out there and light a fire and play in big-time situations like they did last season. Being an interim head coach is like being a substitute teacher compared to a real teacher. Not everybody can do the job. It's like being a babysitter compared to being a parent. Not everybody can do the job, right? Everything that I thought Antonio Pierce was going to bring to the table as a head coach of the Raiders, he's fallen short on. And if you're going to be a head coach that doesn't call plays on offense, doesn't call plays on defense, doesn't have an impact in that type of regard during the game, what do you bring to the table? And that's my honest question of, I legitimately don't know what Antonio Pierce brings to the table in terms of value as a head coach. And the fact that I'm thinking that, there's players, coaching staff thinking that, the nation's thinking that, and we got to be able to face the facts of if this is what it looks like as Antonio Pierce is the head coach, there's no way in hell you can bring him back next season. Let's go to the next thing, that Antonio Pierce will not have a job if Luke Getsy remains offensive coordinator, which this is kind of one of the ones that I've just continuously scratched in my head, because for AP to say that it's coming down to execution and like wouldn't even entertain the idea of taking play calling duties away from Luke Getsy makes me question Antonio Pierce's IQ as a head coach. I've gone back and I've watched every play that the Raiders have had. I know a lot of other Raiders YouTubers have done it. I know a lot of film people have done it. I know a lot of people that are very well respected in this industry that have gone back and watched every single game and can't wrap their mind around how Antonio Pierce thinks Luke Getsy is doing a good job, because I'll tell you this, he is a horrific play caller. Not only is he a horrific play caller, I've never seen somebody legitimately not be able to make adjustments like Luke Getsy. We had Josh McDaniels last season. Josh McDaniels is a better play caller than Luke Getsy. And maybe we just got to script 70 plays because the Raiders look really good that first drive in the first quarter because those plays are scripted by Getsy. But good offensive coordinators, good coaches can make adjustments once teams adjust to you. We don't have coaches good enough to be able to do that. And the fact that you're failing to admit that this coaching staff is dropping the ball, that scares me the most, because if he loses the players that helped him get the job, I don't see how you could possibly keep AP. One of the guys that I respect the most in this industry that cover the Raiders is my guy Sanjeet, and he is already at the point where they got to fire Luke Getsy and they need to fire Antonio Pierce today. He said this back on October 27th, and he wants to make Patrick Graham the interim head coach and let Scott Turner run the offense. I'll tell you this right now, the Raiders would be a better football team if both of these things happen. And if the Raiders are actually legitimately trying to win games, then they should do it. But I also know this. We're 2-6. If you don't have a chance to win a Super Bowl, then you might as well try to get something that changes your franchise. And the only way that we're going to change our franchise is getting a legit quarterback in the draft next season, top 5. I do want the Raiders to fire Luke Getsy because I think he's a terrible OC. And every day that you let Luke Getsy go out there on the field, that tells the nation, that tells all your players that you're not trying to win football games and that you think that the players are the problem and you don't think it's the coaching staff. I think it also is making players question your football IQ. It's making me, the nation, question your IQ because everybody can see that Luke Getsy isn't good at this job. If you don't want Luke Getsy calling plays anymore, I want you to hit that like button. I want the Raiders to show me that they actually give a shit because I give a shit. I know it's kind of a difficult situation because we all want that high draft pick. We all want that high quarterback. But you know what? The only reason why I'm kind of like on it is it wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders were somewhere around where they were picking 10 and Shador just tells all these people, because he's already done it, Dion has already said it, there's certain teams that he will and will not go to. What if it's already in bed, like the Raiders are going to end up getting Shador Sanders? That's all I'm saying. If you want to check out my video that I did around some Luke Getsy replacements, it is this video right here on the channel. It's also available down in the comments in the description of this show, which you can go check out. I break down the top candidates that are on the Raiders, and then I also break down the top candidates for 2025 because there's just no way Luke Getsy can be a part of this Raiders team in 2025. And if the Raiders draft Cam Ward, if the Raiders draft Shedeur Sanders, and Luke Getsy's your OC, you might as well just throw away those players' careers because everything Luke Getsy touches turns to shit. Let's go to the final reason here of why Antonio Pierce could be fired. It is the Raiders don't show growth. You got to show growth. If you had a job right now and you were hired on day one, and the day you got hired at your job, and if the product that you put out there, your company lost money, or if you got worse and worse at your job, or if everybody in the business was going, I don't think this guy's very good at this job, you wouldn't be back next season. And when you look at the Raiders this season, they haven't shown any growth. And I continuously put this challenge out there of, tell me one area where the Raiders have improved upon from last season with Josh McDaniels to this season with Antonio Pierce. Even if you can give me one or two reasons of where they improved. The fact that it's really challenging to think about after a year where you had McDaniels, I think just goes to show you how sad of a head coach right now Antonio Pierce is. But I don't know where they've gotten better. Like, I don't know. And the Raiders' offensive coaching staff, I think, is arguably one of the worst in the NFL. Antonio Pierce got hired, and the Raiders basically didn't do any other head coaching interviews. They didn't. They had their eyes set on AP. AP was a part of the hiring process for Tom Telesco. AP and Telesco were part of the hiring process. I know they wanted Cliff Kingsbury. I know they wanted Jaden Daniels. But when those things didn't happen, they turned to Luke Getsy. AP has shown me that he can't build an offensive staff. So when you're a head coach that doesn't inspire confidence in your team, has a really soft football team, doesn't call X's and O's, you look at all those situations and you're going, I don't see how you can bring back a guy that has shown that he is bad at his job and plus doesn't show you any room for improvement. I mean, we got to be able to face the facts here. If the Raiders finish this season with a top 5 pick, and if Antonio Pierce is being legit, and I don't expect him to ever say, oh yeah, we're trying to lose games, we're trying to tank, and maybe that's the case. But if they are trying to win games and you finish with a top 5 pick, I'm sorry, but you have to move on from Antonio Pierce. Or, and I'll say this, maybe they decide to designate AP as like a sub-rule to still hang out with the team and give a head coaching job to another person, because it's not that I don't like Antonio Pierce. I love AP, and I wanted AP to work. We all wanted AP to work. But it is a business decision, and the business decision is in the idea of you can't put everybody or can't put anybody above the shield. Its commitment to excellence is just win, baby. And Antonio Pierce has failed on all of those fronts. A business decision is to move on from AP, especially if this team continues to play as bad as what they're playing.